Okay, for today's lesson, we just have a few little examples. We're going to talk about solving quadratics by taking square roots. Now, really, when this is a good form to use is when we have ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, and the b value equals 0. So we just have the squared and the constant. This is when this is going to be the way to go. So let's do a few examples. Example 1. Let's do 25x squared equals 4. Now, if we think about perfect squares and stuff as well, right over here, the 25x squared is a perfect square. And it doesn't matter if this side over here or not, but right now this x squared, this whole side over here is a perfect square. So if that's the case, we can solve this. And so this is going to be 4. There's a couple of ways to think about it. In fact, let's do it both ways. So the first way is, let's take the square root of both sides. When we do this, we're going to get the square root of 25 is 5. The square root of x squared is x. And then the square root of 4 is 2. But when we're looking at this side, the square root of 4 isn't only 2, because really what it's asking is what number times itself equals 4. 2 equals 2 times 2 is 4, but negative 2 times negative 2 also equals 4. So we can use this little symbol, which means positive or negative 2. And so now we can solve this. We're going to divide both sides by 5. Those are going to divide out. And so we're left with x equals positive or negative 2 and 5. Now it is fine if you want to go x equals 2/5, comma, negative 2/5, because that is also a true statement. Now another way that we could have worked this, and I'll do this in blue just to differentiate between the two. If I start out with my 25x squared equals 4, I can isolate the x squared. So I'm going to divide both sides by 25, divide by 25. Those divide out, so I'm left with x squared equals 4 25ths. Now I have my x squared isolated, and so now I'm just going to rewrite it. So now I can take the square root of both sides. The square root of x squared is x. And now, and we'll talk more about this as we go through, but the square root of 4 is 2. The square root of 25 is 5. And again, like before, and we'll talk more about this on Thursday when we simplify radicals and do some things. But take the square root, that means one's going to be positive and one's going to be negative. So either way, we get the same answer. Let's do another one of these. Let's do example 2. Example 2, let's do 4x squared plus 9 equals 0. Oh. Come back. Give me like 5 or 10 minutes. Oh, I'm in the middle of this, so I can't stop. I can't pause it. No papers for today. Just study. We are going to go over the keys, but that's all we're doing today. You're not getting anything new for today. Okay. Sorry about that. So let's go ahead and look at this. So I want to isolate my 4x squared first. So I'm going to subtract 9 from each side. We get 4x squared equals negative 9. 4 is a perfect square. Let's go ahead and divide both sides by 4. Let's go ahead and isolate the x squared. Although because 4 is a perfect square, we can take the square root of this. Here we end up with x squared equals negative 9/4. We take the square root of both sides. Okay, now we have a little bit of a problem here. But so the square root of x squared is x equals, what number times itself equals a negative number? There isn't a number that equals a negative number. You can't take the square root of a negative number in this class. When you get into Algebra 2, Probably second semester, I think they let you do some things that we don't deal with in Algebra 1 because we deal with real numbers. That is not possible. And if it's not possible, that means that there is no solution. We haven't really run across that yet with the quadratics. But that is that. So you can't take the square root of a negative number. I do want to do one more problem based on some questions that some people had. And so let's call this example 3. For example 3, I want to go x minus 3 squared equals 7. So this whole entire side is squared. And because of that, we can use the same square root idea. So we're going to have x minus 3 squared. I'm just rewriting it to make everything nice and clear. We can take the square root of both sides. We take the square root of both sides. We have on the left, we're just left with x minus 3. Now, does the square root of 7 come out nicely? It does not. That is an irrational number. It'll go on forever and never repeat because 7 is not a perfect square. So this is going to equal the square root of 7. Now, just like what we did over here with the positive or negative, it's the same thing here. So, because the negative version of that number also works. So we do have to have the positive or negative. But now we have to solve this for x. So when we solve this for x, we're going to add 3 to both sides. When we add 3 to both sides, we're going to have x equals 3 plus or minus the square root of 7. Now this is the exact answer. You may be asked to round it, which means you can put it in your calculator and estimate it. But don't forget when you do that, there's one that's a plus and one that's a minus. Let me know if you have any questions.